Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, I just wanted to remind us that on Sunday, September 10th, it's World Suicide Prevention Day. It's an event to raise awareness around the globe that suicide can be prevented. It's about creating hope through action. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to pause and express my gratitude to John and Vicky for LifeLab, Ashes for Rubies, Carlington Booch, and their church that's just there in our communities providing hope. It's a result of LifeLab that I've been able to grow spiritually, heal progressively, and live my best life. So I'm really grateful for that today. My name is Chantale. I relate as a recovered sex and relationship addict, a recovering controller, fixer, obsessor, and I'm actually currently working the 12 steps for compulsive eating and sugar addiction. The topic I chose for today is out of hiding. The part of me that wanted to stay safe hoped that I could cover step one as a food addict just by reading my personalized stories from the big book, the one about Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde, hence hiding, right? Methods I have tried and jaywalker. But God had other plans. In fact, he was relentless in his pursuit. It all started with a song, Out of Hiding by Stephanie Gretzinger. I hope I pronounced that right. God has been using that song for the last 5 years in my life, and the last 3 days, maybe longer, it's been on repeat in my head. So I thought that today I would read some of the verses and then draw my experience from there. So I wanted to start with the beginning, and this is what I hear God say to me most mornings. Come out of hiding. You're safe here with me. There's no need to cover what I already see. So in this sacred space, now I can safely share my story, the one that has haunted me since my youth, the one that still makes me feel like a monster and shaped my heart decades later. But before I do that, I just want to share a disclaimer. It's about trauma and memory. These words were taken from Timea Naji's memoir. She's a human trafficking survivor. She said, it's important for me to remember that when recounting traumatic events from my youth, there is no such thing as a perfect memory, because through times of trauma, some images and conversations are imprinted on the mind and heart with great clarity, while others are blurred. I remind myself of this fact because whether I am abstinent or in the grip of my compulsive behaviors, Satan tries to confuse, deceive, defeat me. He leaves me wondering. I feel like I'm stalling. That's sort of procrastination. It's a form of fear. Just give me a second. So yeah, no matter how I feel today, I'm going to trust and obey God. He gave me this word in 2023 and has been reminding me of it in the past week. It's from Psalm 27, verses 13 and 14. Chantale, believe that you shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Chantale, let your heart take courage. And it's only because of 5 years of recovery, a willing husband, and a sacred community that I can actually share this out loud. As the song says, God's rid me of my shackles of shame. His victory is mine. So I'm going to describe a few things that I did acting out when I was in my sexual addiction. I don't suspect it would be triggering because I've kept it as minimal as I can. But if there is something triggering, please feel free to disconnect or reach out to Vicky and she can give you the support you need. My first sexual experience was coerced. In my early youth, I was threatened by an older boy in my neighborhood. I knew who he was, and I even told my friends that I thought he was cute, but we never spoke. He was older than me. That day, he took me to the back of the shed and forced me to perform sexual acts. Otherwise, he would cause great harm to my family, he said. Then when he was done, he threatened me by saying that if I told anyone, he would come back looking for more, or perhaps take on my friends behind the shed. I felt so helpless, so powerless. I was afraid for the lives of the people around me. The shame comes in this following part, though. Sometimes a victim like myself becomes an offender. Unfortunately, that also became part of my story. A desire for self-gratification and satisfaction was awakened in me. I explored sexuality with my girlfriends. Problem is, they looked up to me, and some were younger than me. Who does this? Once I was discovered by others, my shame multiplied, if that's even possible. And I started isolating myself, not only from community, but from friends and family. I felt like a monster. The lyrics from Skillet's song Monster remind me how I felt. Here's just a few of them. If I let him out, he'll tear me up and break me down. Why won't somebody come and save me? Make it end. I feel it deep within. It's just beneath the skin. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I hate what I've become. The nightmare's just begun. I must confess that I feel like a monster. It's hiding in the dark. There's no escape for me. It wants my soul. It wants my heart. No one can hear me scream. Maybe it's just a dream, or maybe it's inside of me. Stop this monster. So what the artist intended when he wrote this song was just to let us know that we have a secret side, and that side struggles, but it's not our real self. It's the self that's been hurt by others. The artist also says that it's an example of the sinful nature or the old self, meaning that now that we have been saved and forgiven and are a new creation, we can sometimes still feel like a monster inside when we act out, when we're tempted, when we're deceived, when we're weak. In my case, it's when I'm not connected directly to God. And although I've been abstinent in the sex addiction, in the last 9 years, I've been very reactive in the controller fixing, obsessing. And some of this has come up through the work that I've been doing. So I'm just going to continue here. I believed I didn't deserve to live or enjoy life. I vowed I would never be like the man who abused me. Yet I continued to self-gratify, read erotic romance novels, watch porn late at night, on cable no less, once my parents went to bed. Rom-coms and soap operas, afternoon and night. I also manipulated partners with my sexual behavior to hold on to my skewed view of love. I believe sex equaled love plus approval. By escaping and living vicariously through the TV screen, I could escape my pain and cope with life my way, or so I thought. In step 1, we're asked to list 10 of the most insane things we have done when acting out on our dependencies. 5 of my 10 were related to sex, love, and fantasy. Wow, it was like a mirror reflecting brightly back in my face. Here's just a few. 1, I had sex with my boyfriend in a camping tent where 2 other people were sleeping beside us. 2, I had sex with my boyfriend after breaking up with him in the hopes that he wouldn't leave and that we would stay together. 3, I had sex with my boyfriend on a nature trail in a residential area while the sun was still shining bright. 4, binging on TV dramas, rom-coms, and soap operas, watching every romantic and sex act with excitement so I could escape the ruminating thoughts in my head. 5, bringing my tablet to the kids' soccer game to read an erotic trilogy in the delusion that I'm doing this to be able to speak to how inappropriate it is and pray for others and pray against these perverse behaviors. Who does these things? I did. Completely insane and caught up in my compulsion. No God, no control, no choice. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. 10 years ago, I met my husband. We struggled greatly in the beginning of our relationship. Today, he's a recovered sex addict, but that hasn't always been the case. Time after time, he would act out or relapse. And although I was abstinent in the sex addiction, I had no problems punishing him with a silent treatment or cold shoulder. I would judge and criticize or try to control, fix, or rescue him. Like the monster in the song, though, I hated who I became, and I knew I couldn't live that way anymore, but had no clue how to change the mental obsessions and allow my aching heart to beat again. This experience served as a powerful reminder that healing, for me anyway, is progressive. It's important to intentionally work towards a new life, to become the new creation God desires me to be, to trust God, trust the process, and trust myself. While all addictions can impact our loved ones, I placed a greater significance on my husband's addiction, particularly in a godly marriage, because it felt like a betrayal of security, of trust, and intimacy. I experienced ongoing post-traumatic stress because of ongoing betrayal trauma. Since my childhood, I struggled with the consequences of extreme dissociation of my emotions, feelings, and reactions to people, stress, criticism, and judgment. I have heard it said that we can only see in others what lives in us. And when I heard this, it was in a positive context. But I think it can also be seen in a defeatist context. So instead of punishing myself and beating myself up for all the repercussions of my past, I was taking it out on my husband in spades. He was an easy target, a great way for me to deflect and not to have to look deep within my soul. In the fall of 2020, I started my recovery. I joined a small group of women willing and courageous enough to face heartbreak and work through the steps to recovery for partners of sex addicts. This was complemented with one-on-one counseling sessions with a professional therapist. I really hang on to God. Daily fellowship with Him, gratitude, and meditation filled my tank. Powerful therapy exercises caused me to realize that as long as I was punishing my husband, we could not enjoy a godly marriage. I said that we were a team. I wanted a partner, and I wanted to be his biggest cheerleader. But my lack of forgiveness and actions contributed to prove otherwise. I learned that my husband's addiction wasn't about me. It was an unhealthy way for him to cope with stress in life, to find ease and comfort and numb his pain. I didn't cause it. I couldn't change it. I couldn't control it, and I couldn't cure it. But I could support my husband instead of enabling him, encourage him instead of emancipate, and be a godly helpmate instead of a controlling and demanding wife. Extending grace and love were easier as time went by, but I still held on to unforgiveness. It was only later that I realized that what I was holding out on was God's redemptive work, not only in my heart, but in his life, my husband's life as well. I had to admit that I was responsible for some of the state of our marriage. I had to get rid of my own addictive behaviors. So I committed to the following: recovery, prayer. I prayed 5 powerful prayers for your husband every day for 2 years. One of those prayers, though, was actually a prayer to transform his wife. And this one I made sure to pray regularly because I could see in that prayer what it was that God was seeking from me. Because I'm a controller, it was easy to be the one that took hold of the finances. So I committed to be more transparent with our finances. I also committed to be more transparent with what happened to me when I was anxious and overwhelmed, to try and express what was going on rather than shutting my husband out. I also committed to intentionally build leisure and great outdoor adventures in our lives. This was important as much for my husband as it was for me. We had lived in a condo, and I kept nagging about some stuff that needed to be done indoors, and he was just always on about having a house and being able to work outdoors. And finally, we moved to Canada in 2021, and I just see how he flourishes when he connects with being outdoors. And when we shared our testimony together in May, I was able to recognize that and just extend forgiveness to him on that. And the other reason to build in intentional fun is I took myself too seriously, especially as a result of the vow that I didn't believe I deserved to live or enjoy life. I've had many days with suicidal ideation, none that I specifically acted out on, but I was really cutting myself short in my day-to-day life. Finally, God reconciled me to my younger self. As a result, I was able to ask and accept help, trust others, and explore love instead of fear. God's love, self-love, love from others, and love for others. My husband's addiction is not about me. I tell myself this when I start ruminating about his actions and his love for me. Better yet, I take this letter that I wrote to addiction and turn it into a we prayer instead of an I prayer. Satan, addiction, enemy, tempter, liar, deceiver. We are here to tell you what's what and to reclaim what belongs to my husband and I. For years now, you have relentlessly attempted to rob and destroy our self-image and healthy relationships, trading our self-esteem, intimacy, hurts, and pain for quick fixes. Although we have known about you since the beginning, don't be fooled, because today we are declaring war against your schemes. Where you dig up fear, we will plant faith. Where you dig up shame, we will plant grace, mercy, and compassion. When you dig up temptation, we will plant vulnerability, love, and kindness. When you dig up doubt, deception, and denial, we will plant devotion, determination, and discipline. Where you dig up strife and discord, we will plant harmony. When you dig up lust, we will plant love. Where you dig up darkness, we will plant light. Indeed, because we've chosen to bring you to the light, your power over us has been snuffed out. Because of you, I have felt and believed that I was a monster. I didn't matter, that I wasn't good enough, and that I was unworthy and undeserving of love. I will no longer entertain the thoughts that you would have me believe about myself or my husband. Because of you, we believed we were victims. But from this day forward, we are choosing to be victorious and live each moment being present in the victory our God has assured us. From this day forward, we are choosing healing and growth, as well as love, hope, and prayer for my husband and myself and our marriage. By God's grace, we are and will be together for good despite your schemes, because while you continue to wage the battle against us, we believe the war has already been won by the sacrificial and unconditional love of our Lord and Savior, God Jesus. Amen. So now fast forward to October 2022. This is where I was in October 2022. Since August, I've been pondering my husband's relapse. I said I would support him, but did I really mean it? In my quiet time with God in the Muskokas, where all of creation shouted God's glory and majesty, he whispered, "Come out of hiding. There's no reason to stand at a distance anymore. You're not far from home. Keep on coming. And oh, as you run, what hindered love will become part of your story. I'll be your lighthouse," he said, "when you're lost at sea, and I will illuminate everything. No need to be frightened by intimacy. No, just throw off your fear and come running to me." And then it happened. I stopped holding out on God's redemptive work and power for me. His forgiveness washed over me, and I was able to finally forgive myself, to then forgive my husband wholeheartedly, and begin living a transformed life. Since then, our marriage has grown exponentially. I kid you not. We are committed to God, our recovery, and each other. God has taken us to the next level. Here's a short list of some of the miracles we have experienced. First of all, we changed church and committed to taking 6 to 12 months away from leadership to put first things first. So God and our marriage. We're now 10 months and counting into that and still holding strong. So I think that's really good when you have two people who are so easily diverted and distracted. We worked through a grief and loss with a support group for 12 weeks. In May, and this I find is one of the biggest miracles for me on my side of the story, we openly and jointly shared our sex addiction and recovery story from the pulpit. It was a recovery meeting, but it was within a church sanctuary nonetheless. I wish these sexual things weren't so hidden. This experience of sharing rocketed us to more freedom and more healing. We stand on solid ground now, living on purpose for a purpose. If you had told me a year ago that my marriage would be as awesome as it is now, I would have laughed in your face and said, "From your lips to God's ears." Because even though I was praying, I didn't believe God was hearing my prayer. None of what was coming from my lips was reaching God, or so I thought at the time. My husband would say my transformation has been amazing. Those are his words, I swear. He says I'm more spontaneous, easily able to ask and accept help. I identify and share my feelings, and I'm quick to forgive. What I see in my husband is miraculous. He recognizes his limits, is honest and vulnerable, willing to do the work necessary to heal and to take comfort in the grieving process. Gone are his denial and defensiveness. His heart is open to listen to feedback rather than getting offended. He is a faithful servant. Perhaps the most painful loss I face as a codependent married to a recovering addict is the loss of our dreams, the hopeful and sometimes idealistic expectations for the future. During this season of my trauma and grief, I decided that my husband and I would no longer be involved in supporting the fight against human trafficking. He had been to Cambodia for that very reason. And time again, I told him, how could we be involved with such a cause while still acting out? I felt like a hypocrite, not only because of my acting out, but because of my husband's acting out. For those of you who don't know, watching porn, subscribing to channels of lust only increases the demand. I don't know of any boy or girl who wakes up one day and says that that's the kind of life they want to live. We're very fortunate to be in Canada. We're also I'm very blessed that our addictions don't involve tender age children, although they happen to us at a tender age. And recently in a conversation with a friend of mine, she said that at her medical practice, one of the doctors had treated a young girl who was being trafficked in the East End of Ottawa. It's pretty close to our backyard. Anyway, back to my story. My husband had been to Cambodia and wanted me to return with him someday. I always responded with a resounding no, never. Then this spring, after we shared later on in summer, God wanted me to go to Cambodia with my husband. I knew it could only be God. Only He could light a fire in my spirit strong enough to move me from broken to whole. I didn't sit on His plan either. I told my husband almost immediately, before I could stress and obsess, try and control and manipulate my way out of it. That in itself is a miracle. The last miracle I want to leave with you is how God orchestrated and guided me to speak today. There were a handful of confirmations, but I chose this one because I believe we can all challenge our sexual self-awareness. Starting today, Restored Ministries has set a 14-day challenge to do just that. Before you object, please take a minute now to consider this. Sexuality is at the core of God's creation, and it's written about from Genesis to Revelation. And yet, we often don't even know why we behave the way we do. We just act without understanding why. I know that's been my experience. I know that's been my husband's experience. So now I leave you to ponder this. How many times in your life has someone held your hand and discipled you effectively regarding your sexuality? I'm not sure what my husband's answer would be, but I know mine is zero. Despite all the recovery and the therapy that I've done, we still haven't addressed that. So I'm grateful that hopefully my husband and I will take on that challenge and that others can join us. So if you're interested, just reach out to Vicki and John. I sent them the link. Challenge starts today, but I'm sure we can catch up if we want to. Lastly, I just want to close with the end of Stephanie Gretzinger's song, Out of Hiding. God, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. Come on, somebody, lift your hands out there. You're already loved. His love for you is not pending. He's already made up his mind. He's not trying to figure it out. His love is not buffering. You're already loved. Receive the love right now. He's our heavenly Father. He said he'll never leave us or forsake us. And that means you too. You're already loved. Now, if you're up to it, I would like everybody to unmute on the count of 3 and say, I'm already loved. 1, 2, 3. I'm already loved.
loved.
Don't doubt it. You are loved. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to hold your head down. Simply thank Jesus and come out of hiding because you're already loved.